So again, this Superman image is basically how constitutional sheriffs are portrayed. That sheriff supremacy says that county sheriffs have these superpowers that I just mentioned. And that basically sheriffs can do whatever they want as long as they think it's constitutional, and that they and they alone get to make that decision. Now, as we'll talk a little bit more about, it all comes down to basically this faulty interpretation of the Constitution and bad historical revisionism. So constitutional sheriffs, proponents of sheriff supremacy, believe that sheriffs are Superman, that sheriffs have these superpowers, when in fact, they really don't. So the term constitutional sheriff is meant purposely to sound really positive and to evoke strong support for the rule of law and this idea that these sheriffs are dedicated, to enforcing and maintaining the constitutional rights of all people. It's meant to have that connotation. And as you will see from any of the proponents of sheriff supremacy, that word constitution or that word constitutional is very important. And they will roughly use it about 1 million times when they're telling you about how it's based in the Constitution and what the basis of these supposed superpowers are. So I thought I would just do this quick scorecard on how many times both the federal Constitution and the Montana Constitution give those superpowers to a sheriff. You probably won't be surprised to learn that the US Constitution never mentions sheriffs, never mentions constables, and therefore doesn't bestow these superpowers onto the sheriff. Now, in the Montana Constitution, the sheriff is mentioned once, but it's mentioned in terms of county government, an office of county government, but nowhere does it say that sheriffs are granted these powers to make these ultimate decisions about the constitutionality of law. So no superpowers from the Montana Constitution either. But proponents of sheriff supremacy deeply, deeply believe that the sheriff and these powers are in these documents, whether it's the state constitution or the federal constitution. And I know, during presentations, I've gotten into what I call kindergarten arguments with people, which is I'll basically say what I've said. They're not in the Constitution. An audience member will say, well, yes, they are. And then I'll say, no, they aren't. And we'll go back and forth. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, no. Then eventually, often they'll move to, well, okay, maybe it's not in the Constitution, but the sheriff is an elected position. And that is obviously very true, but there's nothing that says sheriffs have the ability to, they and they alone, determine the constitutionality of law. And if you think about it, if you go in and actually look at the qualifications for people to run for sheriff, there's nothing about having degrees in constitutional law, law degrees, American history degrees, or anything like that that would lend themselves to being able to make those types of judgments. And you want to know why? Because they aren't supposed to be doing that in the first place. That is not something that they are required or given the power to do.